Record. All right. Welcome. Hello, everybody. This is the RVAgreen 2050 Transportation Working Group. Are you seeing the full screen of the presentation? Excellent. Okay, so thank you for
Actually, we're seeing the full screen with the slides on the left. So it's not the presentation version of the screen, but it's the.
There we go. Okay, is that the presentation version now? Thank you so much, Alan. All right, so thanks for joining us today. This is the kickoff meeting for the RVAgreen 2050 Transportation Working Group. This is being recorded. In the chat are some instructions for renaming yourself so that we know there's an emoji you can cut and paste from the chat. The wrench represents a staff coordinator. The co-chairs have a star next to their names, and working group members. All of you, thank you so much for being here, making yourself available. I'm going to go over the agenda real quickly. First, we'll talk about some ground rules, and then what is RVAgreen 2050. We'll have an icebreaker where we can get to know each other a little bit in some small groups. I know this is not the ideal setting for collaboration, but we're going to do our best. Then we'll go through a presentation, which is really setting the stage for equitable climate action and resilience. I know that we are all gung-ho to set these strategies in place, implement them, and get Richmond net zero, but we have a lot of work, foundational work to do to make sure that this long-term plan is equitable and sustainable. So then we'll go over some logistics and next steps. But first, let's go ahead and learn who is in the room. I will just preface that by saying, how did you arrive here? Well, you are a combination of applicants. You're recommended, you're specifically requested, you're voluntold, you're a combination of technical experts, residents with valuable lived experiences, you're decision makers. You are those who will be essential to carrying out the initial rollout of these plans, as well as those who will be essential for the long-term success. So as we go around and do our introductions, please give your name, your organization, and if you live in Richmond, we'd love to know your neighborhood that you are representing, because this is all about lived experiences and with an equity-based approach. So with that, can I ask David to go through the participants? And we can start with David.
Yeah, no problem. So hello, everyone. My name is David. I am currently an intern with the Office of Sustainability. I've been helping Dawn and Wendy out for the past couple of months. My background is in public policy, specifically in higher education, but I'm currently earning my master's in environmental studies at VCU. So happy to get to know all of you and help out sort of where I can. And I just moved to Manchester, so just south of the river, about a month ago. So learning a brand new area of Richmond that I didn't know too much about before. So if Angela can go, you're up first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Fontaine. I am a transition consultant with a global company called Lee Hecht Harrison, although that is not how I'm affiliated with RVAgreen 2050. I was recommended, asked to apply through my good liaison through the City Council member's office. I've been involved with community-based things as much as possible. My background is in social services, working with individuals transitioning out of prison. So my background's in the more community-based roles. Post-COVID, I decided to work from home and do the more corporate thing, but this is where my heart lies. I just bought a house a few years ago in the 9th District, just south of the river. I think my neighborhood's called Forest View. So not Forest Hill or Westover Hills, but that area between like the Midlothian Turnpike and Forest Hill is where I live.
Great, thanks. It's like Diane.
So I'm Diane Linderman, and I am the managing director of the Richmond office of VHB, which is a consulting engineering firm that is based up in Watertown, Massachusetts, and has offices all up and down the East Coast. Before I was at VHB, I was the Public Works Director for the City of Richmond. And I value the experience that I got when I was working for the city. I have lived in Richmond for 40 years in various different neighborhoods. I now actually live in Chesterfield, but I can see the corporate limit right outside my window. So I'm right on South Side now, but lived in the near West End. I lived on, when I first moved here, I lived over by the vet hospital. So have a lot of experiences. And my background is in transportation. Started early in my career understanding or working on transportation planning and design efforts.
Great, thank you. Julie.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right, great. My name is Julie Manzari. I work for Dominion Energy. I'm really excited about working on this project. I work in downtown Richmond, but have quite a commute out to Louisa County, Virginia, where my husband and I have a small farm, which he operates. I drive an electric vehicle for about a 45-minute commute. It's a smaller one. I love my experience. At Dominion, I am part of the innovation team, which puts me with a lot of focus on emerging markets and new opportunities. And of the last couple of years, I've been really focused on mobility, including electric vehicles, as well as a project deployment we just did for a public autonomous last mile shuttle up in one of the Northern Virginia counties. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Sandra.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Sandra. Antoine, born, raised in this beautiful river city. Had the experience of not only living in the Churchill section, but transitioning to the what is now known as the Swansboro section, the south side of the city. We go by the river when we describe where we reside. Pre-busing, post-busing, I am also a Vietnam era veteran. I am post-retired from Virginia State Police. And with the governor's office now, this is my post-retirement special outreach passion is in restoration of civil rights with the governor's office, Secretary of the Commonwealth Office. I am a community organizer. I am a grassrooted person in this city, and whatever it takes to transform our city and be inclusive, I'm there. And I was recommended for the group. Thank you.
Great, thanks for sharing. Alicia?
She is on another call, so let's come back to her.
All right.
She's going to turn her camera on when she can join us.
Okay, perfect. So let's slide Alan.
Hey, I'm Alan Harned. I'm actually in Harrisonburg, Virginia, but I used to live in the Fan. I'm with Virginia Clean Cities, which has worked in partnership with the city of Richmond on a number of fantastic projects, including planning for electric vehicles in 2012, and then following up with working with the city on some deployment plans for light duty electric vehicles and infrastructure. I'm actually most excited about collaborations on a range of technologies to reduce transportation emissions. There's 50 million metric tons of CO2 coming out of Virginia's dependence on oil, and we don't produce oil, so it's like stuff that we're buying that's not so great. So there's some great opportunities, and we also are launching this last month. We're initiating a project that is to engage and educate and support frontline communities and everyday people in operation of electric vehicles, which is going to be a very necessary step to be sure that all of Richmond and all of Virginia is involved. And Richmond's going to be a key partner. We're planning some events in Richmond, and so just appreciate the cleaner side of the city's transportation, but also the city's the citizens' vehicles.
Awesome, thank you. Carlisle, you're up next.
And is it Robin Jones, Robin Carlisle Jones, or?
Yeah, Carlisle Jones. I don't see Robin, but I can come back. They joined a little bit late. All right, Jason.
Hi, everybody. Pardon me. My name is Jason James. I've lived in Richmond since 2006. I actually teach cultural anthropology at the University of Mary Washington up in Fredericksburg. So on the days that I do that and am not teaching virtually, which I'm doing now, I do that commute a fair amount. But otherwise, when I'm in Richmond, I try my best to get around, and I love to get around by bike mostly and by foot as well. I got involved in this kind of issue pretty early on in my time in Richmond, getting involved in the first bicycle master plan that was put in place quite a few years ago, and have since then been involved in the transportation element of Richmond 300. I started a blog that then turned into a Facebook page called Bikeable Richmond, just to try to sort of share information and ideas about biking in the city. So I guess you could say I'm mainly focused on the safety and environmental aspects of trying to take some of the focus away from streets that are pretty much for cars and only secondarily for everybody else, and trying to help create a more equitable situation and one that's healthier for everybody and for our planet with that.
Awesome, thank you. Jet.
Hey guys, my name's Jet Johnson. I work with the city in the Public Works Department. I do a few things. I work at Main Street Station working events, but I also do, I'm in the Office of Equitable Transit and Mobility. So I work with Bike Share, our van pool program, and I'll be taking on some more transportation projects in the future. And I live out in near Weston, like Tuckahoe area.
Cool, thanks. John Everett.
Okay, how you doing? I also work down at Main Street Station for the City of Richmond, and also in the Office of Equitable Transit and Mobility, working for the City of Richmond. I live in Richmond, near Scott's Addition area, and I have a background in community engagement. So we recently found out about this working group, and just excited to contribute in any way possible.
Sounds great, thank you. Max.
Good afternoon. My name is Max Buchanan. I work for Venture Richmond. I'm also on the city's Planning Commission and the Safe and Healthy Streets Commission. I was the co-chair of the Richmond 300 Advisory Council and chair of the Transportation Working Group. And I live in Ginter Park.
Thank you. Nelson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nelson Reevely, and I'm with RVA Rapid Transit. We're an advocacy organization for regional public transportation. And in that spirit, I live in Western Henrico.
Great, thanks. Robin.
Hi, this is Robin Jones, and I work with the State Energy Office. And I'm really impressed with all the heavy hitters around the table today. I work very closely with Virginia Clean Cities, who is our subject matter expert on everything having to do with transportation. And we are currently working very hard to get some electrification of transportation going on in the Commonwealth. So I live generally in the Bon Air area of South Richmond. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Shelley, let's take her up next.
So there are a couple of folks who are Wendy, Shelley, and Sandra are our representatives on another parallel workshop that's going to feed into this. So I think they might be listening in, but they might not be able to participate.
All right, thanks for that. Looks like after Shelley is Stefan.
All right, can you hear me? I'm actually on foot.
Yep, can hear you.
Okay, I didn't want to miss out on the meeting today. Yeah, the name is Stefan. Demetriadis. Kind of a newbie to the scene. I was, well, still am. I just don't have work as a professional musician and music teacher, private lessons. I've gotten involved within the last couple of years, just learning about transportation and urbanism and things like that. After I was inspired, I traveled with my mother in Turkey and Greece and Bulgaria, and I was shocked to see how much better their systems are than ours, especially for people that are disabled. I was shocked, and I've always been shocked. You know, every time I've gone to Europe with the touring group, they've just got they just do it better, and I got intrigued by that. And I've always enjoyed walking around cities and exploring cities and getting places in cities, and that's really what got me motivated and interested in transportation in general. I'm living in the north tip of North Chesterfield, right at the city line of Southside by Falling Creek Reservoir. I've grown up in the area and very familiar with Broad Rock, Jeff Davis, the South Side, those areas that need attention. I'm a happy Richmonder. I love traveling a lot, but I do like living here as well. And, you know, hoping to learn as much as contribute as well.
Great, welcome, thank you. Trip?
Hi, I'm Trip Pollard with the Southern Environmental Law Center, where I head our land use and transportation work and climate work in 6 states, but I'm based here in Richmond. I work at the state and local level on legal and policy advocacy to promote cleaner and more equitable transportation. Locally, I've been involved, was chair of the city's Green City Commission for a number of years. And I've been on various Richmond 300, multimodal plan, other advisory committees, and look forward to working with this group.
Thank you. Chris?
Hello, Chris Bast. I work on climate change. Currently, I do that from Virginia's Department of Environmental Quality, where I'm the Chief Deputy Director, working on climate change on behalf of Governor Northam. Before that, I worked for the city of Seattle as the transportation decarbonization lead. So bring a little bit of a city and state perspective to the conversation. And I currently live in Henrico.
Awesome, thank you. Trisha?
Hi, my name is Trisha Robinson. I'm working as a transit analyst in the planning department for GRTC. I got volunteered for this group from my director, but I also participate in the Complete Streets Coalition, the Virginia Walkability Action Institute, as well as the Plan RVA Bike Ped Steering Committee. In addition to working for transportation, I'm working on my master's in cartography and web map programming.
Great, thank you. And then let's say last but not least is Jeff.
Hey guys, my name is Jeff Crawford. I am the co-chair of this group. Honored to be here with Dawn. Don't know if I was requested or voluntold, but either way, I'm very happy to be here. I studied sustainable urban dynamics, Arizona State University, really interested in new urbanism. Started going to grad school to get my MERP at VCU, but was picked by the city after presenting some of my economic impact and ROI stuff. That's what I hope to contribute. Really excited to be here. If anybody needs anything at all, please let me know.
Great, and did I miss anyone or skip over anyone by accident? All right, back to you, Dawn.
Thank you so much, David. And thanks for everyone who is here. I know we're all trying to balance busy schedules, and it's really tricky to multitask while we're basically trying to be in a collaborative meeting from our workspace, from our desks. It's tricky to juggle, but I'm grateful for your time. As you can see, you are a combination of experts and decision makers, like I said. You're the ones who are going to help us develop the recommendations for the plan and apply these best practices to the Richmond context, and then incorporate these policies and expectations into your own organizational strategies and neighborhoods and personal lived experiences. So It's really important that we set the stage. A lot of great work is going to come in when we get into the weeds of it and take the technical work that's been done, the modeling, the numbers, the data crunching, and roll out those metrics and strategies and actions, the recommendations for the final deliverables. But in the meantime, we are going to spend a couple of meetings going over a lot of the pre-work. And so the very first most important meeting was that training 2 weeks ago. I hope that you were able to be on that call with Virginia Community Voice. If you weren't, you have received an email with the link to the recording and all of the training materials. So please take a look at that if you haven't already. That is essential to move forward with this project. And if you need us to resend that, please. I know we're sending so much information to you guys on all of this, and we have lots of folks ready to answer questions and do whatever we need to do to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So the next thing I want to go over are some ground rules. Again, this is a new world, this online collaboration. We're trying to make the most of this 1.5 hours that we have together. So we want to certainly respect everyone's time. If we finish early, great. But I will not go past our designated time. So please be present. Would love for everyone to participate. I know at this point we're kind of like soaking in the information, so we don't have a lot of input just yet. But once we do get roll into the conversations, just be sensitive to being additive and not repetitive. We're going to aim for consensus. If you can put that filter of, can I live with this? Then we can move on. And we want to be open to new ideas. If you bring a problem, we would love for you to also bring a solution. And be sure to separate the people from the problem. The rule of thumb is great for these online video meetings. Just an up and a down says a lot, believe me, because we're just kind of staring at each other's faces. So just kind of getting a sense of the temperature of the room always helps. And then this term ELMO came from the Richmond 300 planning process. Enough, let's move on. Again, time sensitive. If we've kind of been beating a topic to death and we're not getting anywhere, or we've heard enough, or we just need to breathe, you put that in the chat. ELMO, we can table it for next time. We're all trying to figure out this new space together. Okay, so a lot has happened in Richmond in the past 10 years when you talk about sustainability. It is a common theme throughout all kinds of work. You're hearing more and more about it. It's mainstream now. It wasn't 20 years ago when I started in the field. But you can see since 2010, the Office of Sustainability has accomplished a lot. And that work is what got us to where we are today. So this slide deck is going to be made available to you after the meeting. We'll send a link to all the materials. They'll be on the website. You can access them. You can go back and read through them and acquaint yourselves with these timelines. So this 2050 RVAgreen 2050 process, again, this pre-work is so important. And it started a couple years ago in the pre-planning stage, where Mayor Stoney announced the RVAgreen 2050 initiative. And so the next step was to collect the data and start doing the research necessary to figure out what this was going to look like, what this planning process was going to look like. And so this equity capacity building is just essential, making sure that it is completely loaded with the equity foundations from the start. So all of these trainings that we're going through, that really is the equity capacity building. Then understanding community priorities has been going on this year. We have this Office of Sustainability has a communications outreach coordinator who has been holding all kinds of listening sessions and surveys and finding out what those community priorities are. We've launched, you'll hear more about this, but really understanding what's important to Richmond as a starting point is where we wanted to get before we started with these technical working groups. So today we are launching the Transportation Technical Working Group, which each one of you is a valuable member of. Then we'll be moving on into the plan development phase next year and passing it on for stakeholder inputs, and then hoping to have a final deliverable adopted in the spring of 2022 and implemented. So that is the timeline of this planning process. We have several different roles. Everyone here today is part of the working group. Some of us are also with the Sustainability Office. Some of us are frontline community leaders and are part of the Environmental Justice Roundtable. And most of you are third parties. You are representatives of other organizations. So at this point, we are going to launch into breakout rooms. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. Let's see. I lost my picture here. Okay, so one size does not fit all. Structural inequity produces consistently different outcomes for different communities. And opportunity structures respond with necessary resources and multiple paths needed for different communities and individuals to thrive. So you can see on the right where we're really looking for tailored opportunities for all, and transportation is certainly a great forum to have these conversations in. So this people-centered approach, if you were on the training a couple weeks ago, you heard a lot about this. And again, I urge you to go back. David had put the link to the training in the chat. It's just available through this Sunday, I believe. So please take a look at it if you haven't already. The training documents are in our shared Google Drive, which David is also going to put in the chat. And this is our an approach that we have adopted. We partnered with Virginia Community Voice. Their blueprint is just, it's eye-opening. I've been doing community engagement for a long time, but really looking at how they approached it, it's exciting because you can see that they have a model that works. You don't need to show up at a meeting and walk away feeling like it was a waste of everyone's time. They know how to do it. So they came up with this model of listening, connecting, crafting, and then reflecting, and continuing to go back and making sure that all of the frontline community advocates are engaged and feel like it's a valuable use of their time to be involved in this process. So what does centering equity mean? Well, it's an academic conversation that is that we're trying to convey in a way that touches people and their lived experiences. So centering equity just means making a commitment to correct our past harms and prevent future unintended consequences. So we need to address the underlying structural and institutional systems that are the root causes of social and racial inequities. And the three ways we're doing that are procedurally, creating processes that are transparent and fair and inclusive, and ensuring that all people are treated openly and fairly, increasing the civic engagement. And then distributional is fairly distributing the resources and the benefits and the burdens, and prioritizing resources for the communities that experience the greatest inequities and the disproportionate impacts and have the greatest unmet needs. And then structurally, our work is going to close the gap so that race and economic status can no longer be used to predict life outcomes, and outcomes for all groups be improved. Isn't that just the model of a beautiful Richmond? So by centering equity throughout the planning process and implementation for RVAgreen 2050, we can address these disproportionate impacts so all members of the community are adequately prepared for the impacts of climate change. That's the goal. And they are all empowered to do their part, to do our part to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So centering community priorities and lived experiences, this just kind kind of shows you how it's a systems approach. On the left, you have, we're centering the lived experience of the Richmonder, and then we're looking at the community priorities, and then we're modeling the systems of change. And on the right, you can see specifically with our working groups, we have racial equity and environmental justice at the center. We have the roundtable that's going to be actually, they're the final say in how this is going to work for Richmond. The priorities, I'll go into a little more, but those community wealth, health and well-being, affordable housing, engagement and communications, government accountability, and beautiful and safe neighborhoods, those were identified through all the work that has been done in the past year, to listen through listening sessions and surveys, to understand what's most important to those vulnerable communities and Richmonders in general. And then the working groups are on the outside. That's where all the technical inputs are coming from: the waste working group, the environment working group, the buildings and energy working group, and then this group, the transportation group. The community group is the one who's really going to be focusing on those priorities to make sure that we are incorporating them into all of our recommendations. So let me pause here and see if anyone has any questions or any inputs to that conversation. Okay, then I'm going to continue on to our toolbox. These are some of the things that we'll be talking about moving forward. This is a next step in city planning. A lot of great work has been done. Like I said, many of you have been involved in a lot of this work, starting with 2012, the sustainability plan that really set the stage for where we are today. The Richmond Connect Strategic Multimodal Transportation Plan in 2013 is a great kickoff point for this group to be incorporating into our future planning. RVA H2O Clean Water Plan, the Vision Zero Action Plan, and then most recently, the Richmond Regional Housing Framework, the Richmond 300 Master Plan, and then the Net Zero Resolution that was adopted in June. And then now here we are today with the RVAgreen 2050 roadmap that we're developing for 2022. So the urban heat vulnerability assessment. Jeff Crawford was going to speak to this a little bit. Are you there, Jeff?
I am, Don. Thank you. So what we were just talking about with equity is really important because now we have technologies that can actually map this kind of thing. One thing, this is similar to the map we saw earlier where heat vulnerability from a different number of, different inputs. If that's paved surfaces, that's average temperature, that's the albedo of the surfaces that are there. This is really critical because we're in the transportation group and a lot of these transportation surfaces add to this. One thing that we need to mention is that if you overlay the literal red lines of historic redlining onto this map, you'll see a strong correlation. And if you go to some of these darker red areas, they have less access to green space, less street foliage, to provide shade. And that results in, if you overlay that with ambulance response for heat-oriented impacts, for folks who are at higher risk live in these neighborhoods, and there's more ambulances dispatched on hotter days. And there's actually a tool that I think David has thrown in the chat here. If you guys want to check it out, it's really valuable. That'll show you on a more granular level the impacts that the urban heat island effect has. And this is something that are the direct results of our inequitable decisions in the past. Not ours, of course, but we're trying to make really equitable, inclusionary decisions here so that we can change what this map will literally look like in the coming decades.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So the Climate Equity Index is some work that was done by our office in partnership with other awesome community leaders. And it takes into account about 39 different layers and demographics and historical inputs, and looks at these areas that are most vulnerable to climate change. And so it's a great tool. You can open it up on the website. David put the link in there, like Jeff said. You can put in your address. Really take a look at these areas that we're going to be talking about, and look at, just play around with the tool. You'll see all kinds of layers, the historical redlining and the flooding, the risks of extreme heat, temperatures, tree canopy, house renters, eviction rates, all of that is layered in there. So you can watch this map change as you add those indicators. So climate vulnerability and risk assessment. What action is needed for Richmond to prepare for and adapt to climate change? Well, we will be talking a lot about this a couple meetings from now. We'll be getting into the climate vulnerability and risk assessment, where we'll understand better exactly what Richmond's future climate could look like. We will talk about what communities and built assets and natural resources are vulnerable to those impacts. You folks in the room are the experts. You know how to put the transportation infrastructure lens into this conversation to really communicate the risks and vulnerabilities that we need to be considering. And then turn it into a risk analysis where we can then prioritize our strategies and recommendations. The engagement phase, which I referred to earlier, looked at the community priorities. Kendra Noral is our communications coordinator who went out into the community. She conducted 62 listening sessions in these neighborhoods where we're seeing the most impacts, and really listened. We did a community survey, got over almost 500 responses. We have the virtual ambassador program. We have 34 participants who have volunteered to be community advocates and take this out into Richmond and share this information and get feedback. We hold virtual office hours with people who are interested in having these conversations. You folks are part of the working groups. We have 134 participants who are taking this deep dive and volunteering your time to be part of this solution. And then, of course, we have the dedicated website and social media and e-newsletter. So I just wanted to give you this slide to show you that it's not just a small group making some big grand projections. It's really doing a lot of work to set the foundation, set the stage to be inclusive. So when we did those listening sessions and the surveys, at the end of the day, the priorities, as I listed before: government accountability, engagement and communication, racial equity and environmental justice, community wealth, housing and buildings, neighborhoods, and health and well-being. It really boils down to those 7 areas. That's what our residents care about. So we need to be making sure that all the work that we're doing when we're talking about transportation, how is it relating to all 7 of those areas? How are we ensuring that those priorities are met with our recommendations and our strategies? So what's next? Well, the working groups are kicking off, and you had the equity training last time. This is the foundation setting meeting. Next month, we will be receiving an equity tool from the Environmental Justice Roundtable, and we'll have a training on that, how to use it for work going forward. So then there's another meeting where we'll talk about the vulnerability and risk assessment. And then we get into the taking some technical modeling that's going on right now to really dig into what do these numbers look like and what strategies should we be prioritizing. And again, that's going to continue to go back and forth and be built on before it gets a final recommendation. But that'll happen in January and February, and then in March, we'll get the community engagement piece of it rolling in, and then finalizing the plan in the spring of 2022. So the workflow, the way this is gonna go, Like I said, there's a lot of cross-pollination going on. So we're going to be, at the next meeting, we'll be receiving the equity tool from the Environmental Justice Roundtable. And then that's going to go to the working groups for review and input. The community group is the one who's going to look at the priorities, the community priorities, and then the topical working groups, including ours, will be refining the vision and the equity tool to send back to the Environmental Justice Roundtable. And then so that's the December meeting on December 17th. And then January 7th, we'll meet, and that's where we will be drafting strategies. Actually, I think these dates are, some of these will be kind of updated as we go, but we'll be doing the risk assessment and then drafting strategies. And it's not just a one-way street. There's a lot of back and forth and a lot of cross-pollination, like I said, to make sure that we understand any obstacles in the beginning rather than later, right? We've all been there.
Yeah, and Dawn, may I add something here?
Please.
Just maybe to help folks get a idea of what's happening, and goes back to that diagram you showed earlier with the circles. But what we're trying to do is really have sort of a reality check and an equity check at each stage of the process. And so the equity tool is something the roundtable is developing. And just to make sure everybody knows, so the roundtable is composed of residents from the areas of highest vulnerability, or those neighborhoods in the community that were most impacted by our local climate issues. And those are the areas that were the darkest colors on the map we showed you earlier. So we put out a call a couple months ago for residents who wanted to participate in the process, and we're paying them stipends to serve on the roundtable. So they're being paid to share with us their lived experiences and their expertise, and to really be a reality check on what comes out of each of the technical working groups and the recommendations. And so we felt like that was really important. So that's sort of one way that we are making sure that we are centering our process in equity. So they're the ones creating the equity tool that will be shared with all of the working groups, so including yours. So as you all are developing recommendations on actions and policies, strategies that we can take to get to that net zero emissions goal and the intermediate goals for reducing emissions, that it's done in a way that's really taking into account equity. And then the other sort of check and way we're trying to integrate and incorporate centering and equity is with the community working group. It's a hybrid, but somewhere between one of the other technical working groups like yours and the roundtable. And so we have folks that are on that working group that have expertise in each of the community priorities that Dawn shared with you earlier, from affordable housing to health to transparency, community engagement. And so all of the recommendations that come through your working group and the other technical working groups will go through the community priority working group before they go to the roundtable. And so I just wanted to share a little bit more information about sort of the process flow and how we sort of created this. And it's by the nature of this being a planning process centered in equity and integrated, this is something brand new to us here at the City of Richmond, brand new to lots of other cities all around the country trying to do this type of work. It's constantly evolving, and we are 100% open to suggestions and ideas that you all have. If you're seeing something that we should be doing that we're not, or something that we could be doing different to improve our process, that's also part of this. So please feel free at any time to give us suggestions, and we're totally open to hearing from you all on how we could improve what we're doing. So this is sort of version 1.0 of this new way of planning for us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that. Great explanation. Okay, so our task is going to be drafting SMARTY strategies at the Equity, Climate Action, Resilience Nexus. And so we've all heard of SMART. strategies? Is it strategic, measurable, ambitious, realistic, and time-bound? Well, let's make sure that we're adding in the inclusive and equitable pieces. So strategic, reflects an important dimension of what the organization seeks to accomplish. What measurable means, we want it to be challenging enough and ambitious so that it would be a significant stretch for the organization, but also realistic and time-bound with a clear deadline. Inclusive means we're bringing traditionally excluded individuals or groups into the process. That's what that Environmental Justice Roundtable is all about. They're being paid to be part of this. Their lived experience is just as or more important than any of the smartest, experts we can find in terms of making this actually a successful program. And then equitable just includes that element of fairness or justice that seeks to address the systemic injustice, inequity, or oppression. So this is what that looks like. We'll be looking at each of those strategies, addressing the community priorities and reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing resilience to climate impacts. And the technical working groups, this is just a list of potential policies or measures that we can look into to reduce the greenhouse gases in each of the working group areas. But that's just a starting point. It's up to our group to prioritize them and maybe identify even more that we could be discussing in this realm. So at that point, any questions? Okay, great. I know it's a lot of information. It's sinking in. You feel free to go back and take a look at these slides later and ask us if you have any questions. The homework is going to be reviewing this presentation and additional slides that are at the end. There are a bunch that go into a little more of the greenhouse gas mapping that's been done and the demographics and the responses from the community survey, so you can take a little deeper dive into those background materials. There's a Google Drive where we will be sharing resources, so there's a link to that in this presentation. I think David is also putting that link in the chat. You can also email us if you have any questions or can suggest other information that would be helpful to share with the group. Our next meeting is going to be December 17th. And that's where we're going to review the vision and equity tool that's coming from the roundtable. They are working on that now. And then there's a survey that David is putting a link to in the chat so that we can make this more, improve on our processes going forward. Would love to hear your inputs. So does Julie have something to say? I see a raised hand.
Yeah, Don, I had a question and I didn't get it in on the slide before. I'm a little curious about, like, as the technical groups kind of formulate some solutions and ideas, or take kind of input in from the other, the actual community stakeholders, will there be kind of an iterative process around there? Because I sometimes think technical groups have ideas that they think are going to be great solutions for people, but they really don't meet the needs of what that particular community needs. But if you have a conversation, sometimes they get refined to a point where they really add a lot of value.
Absolutely. And on this call today, we have Angela. Who else is from the roundtable? I'm drawing a blank. It's on our contact list. We'll get to know each other better going forward. But we have some folks who are, on the roundtable and in this group. Each working group has representatives from the roundtable. So they're going to help keep us informed, and they'll also keep the roundtable informed. And there's just going to be a lot of back and forth. Like you said, we're also used to these very smart teams who have great ideas, and we put a policy out there and we expect it to be successful, and then it just falls down. And that is absolutely the opposite of what we're working towards here. And that's why it is so complicated. And we're spending a lot of time on this foundational work to make sure that we're starting on the right foot.
Yeah, and I think it's an awesome question, and we really appreciate you thinking about that. And in addition to what Dawn said of having two roundtable members on each working group, we also, as part of sort of the flow of information back and forth, as you all in the working groups are developing the strategies, we're going to have time in the process to have the co-chairs of each of the working groups actually meet with the roundtable and sort of, I won't call it like a presentation, but share with the roundtable the strategies, the draft version of the strategies, and get feedback at that point as well. And then, you know, have a chance for the working groups to take that input in and do any tweaking of the strategies before they go back to the roundtable one more time to be sort of put in a final version to go out to community engagement in next April. Well, they'll get feedback from, you know, as many people in the community as we can get, and then come back, and then you all in the working groups in the summer, so next sort of May through July, we'll then refine those strategies and start looking at metrics and implementation. So and then we'll have a back and forth with you all in the roundtable during that phase as well. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, great. I like the iterative process. I think it's going to be a contribute to a successful outcome.
We definitely agree. And if anyone has any ideas on, you know, how we can do, we're trying to do as much of that as possible, but also, you know, trying to be mindful of timing as well in the process. So.
Excellent. Anyone else have a question or recommendation? So there's
Dawn, I'm sorry. I don't know if you said it earlier, but I think it might be helpful. We just maybe clarify for folks too what the time frame is for this developing, in the time frame of these action strategies that we're developing in this roadmap or document, plan, whatever it is. So the ultimate goal is net zero emissions by 2050. But what this planning process is doing will be actually developing actions and strategies, sort of two sets, a very near term so that by the time the plan is adopted will be the year of 2022, early 2022. So we want to set some really short term action oriented get them achieved by 2025, and then some midterm 2025 to 2030 action items. So that's what we want to focus on for this process, this roadmap. The emissions modeling that we'll be sharing with the group is going to be modeled out all the way to 2050, and we'll have certainly an idea of sort of the broad buckets of things that, you know, we'll need to do in the community. But we felt that it was really important to concentrate on the near term and things that we could focus on getting implemented, getting funding, start working on advocating for getting funding for, and things that we knew weren't going to change too much between now and versus something that was, you know, planned out too far ahead of time. So there's certainly things that we know that are going to take a long time, like let's say, just as an example, let's electrifying the buses or something. That's, you know, that's a longer time frame, and we can include those things to plan for. But we want to sort of concentrate on things that we can look to implement in the near term. So just want to, I think it's helpful to let folks know that ahead of time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Any other questions on that? Okay, so David and I have both, I just realized he already posted it. There's a link to the survey in the chat. We do have a few minutes, so feel free to jump off if you need to. I am going to put another link in the chat for you to enter some thoughts to, it's a word cloud basically. You know, walking away from this meeting today, what are your thoughts about this working group? What's your priority? What are your, did you learn something new? I would love to just kind of see where our virtual mind is at this time. So I think the link that I gave David might not be working. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. So let's see, copy link, and I'll put this in the chat. There you go. That should take you to a word cloud input page. So you do need to put your name on there, but then it's anonymous when it shows up in the word cloud. So with that, I want to thank all of you for giving us an hour and a half of your time today. Really grateful for your involvement in this process. I hope you're as excited as we are to get kicked off. Lots of great work to come. Lots of, like I said, this is going to be the only one that's going to be this much of an information dump. Going forward, it's going to be much more interactive. You're here because we want your input. So please kind of let the information settle, spend some time looking at it at a later date, and let us know if you have any questions at all. And with that, I will say goodbye, have a wonderful day, and I look forward to working with you for many years to come.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you all being part of this with us. I'm not sure what happened to
Stefan.
There we go.
Removed him.
Awesome. I think that went really well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's a good group of folks.
Oh,
So.
wait, we're recording.